gotta know when the screen's down, but I think we are.
tagging
Do
it.
you want to do a quick test?
Sure.
Like what I saw at the school board meeting, the one that
Somebody wanna
went
grab
dance,
that?
yeah,
What do you
especially
want?
today.
To grab that?
Oh, that'll,
Grab that bar.
that'll
pull it
come
Like
down.
they got offended by that.
You don't even need to test that,
Shame
that's
on
easy.
them, not shame on the question.
No, I mean that they can.
Oh, so that
That
they can see.
Unless you want to
Why are
do
you
it.
trying to
up,
break
pull
this
it down.
down? He's like,
Yeah.
not. Like,
Yeah, that
you would think we could be doing better.
Yeah, well, that ended up with him doing it.
All right, if everyone will take their seats, we're going to reconvene the meeting. All right, will everyone stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you can all see a number of announcements in the agenda. I'd like to just add a couple other ones. On emergency management, there was a storm on Tuesday the 9th, as you all know. We received several inches of water. There was the 10th highest crest on the Delaware, recorded. Many of the streams experienced flooding. The county and the town OEM were activated. We were briefed. Many trees went down. There was 11 road closures in the county. Fortunately, the notifications that went out early, folks heeded them and mostly stayed home. No person was trapped in floodwaters that required emergency rescue. That's terrific. Thank you to residents for listening to the weather advisories and staying home. Another storm is expected the next few days, predicting another 1.5 inches of rain, also predicting wind. So again, be advised and be aware. Following that, we also understand there may be some snow coming, so be safe, everyone. In terms of electric service, as a result of the storm with both wind and rain, there were a number of outages in town. We've been in touch with JCP&L on a constant basis. They have crews out. They also hired contractors that have been out to repair lines. Service has been restored for many residents, but we're still fielding calls today. JCP&L has advised us that they anticipate that all service hopefully will be restored by 11 p.m. This evening. And also, residents should know JCP&L has a plan where they make drinking water and ice available to folks who have been out of power for 24 hours. For us, you can go to the ShopRite in Flemington. So again, they're mindful not only of trying to get out there, but that folks need ice for their freezer essentially, or need to get drinking water. They'll make that available. So if people have issues, call us. We do have someone at JCP&L that we call to let them know about particular concerns. Okay, so we are going to go open to the public first for agenda items. I believe here, yes. So any objection to opening to the public for agenda items? Hearing none, any members of the public have comments for items not on the agenda? I'm sorry, for items on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, any objection to closing?
I just need a motion to close.
So moved.
Well, we don't need a formal motion. We can also do it if there's no objection.
Okay.
So, do I hear an objection from anyone to close? All right, without objection, we're closed to the public. On minutes, we're carrying a couple of the minutes until the next time. Linda's working on those. So now we get to the presentation section. Rainbow Hill Preserve. So, as some of you know, we have a tremendous preserve that was opened in the township. 528 acres of this 1,100 approximate acre preserve is in East Amwell. We have had some issues, some concerns raised by residents, some on North Hill Road about traffic and about the parking lot there. So we've been in discussions with NJCF and also with the residents. We had a session at a previous meeting to start getting comments from residents, but today we wanted to invite excuse me, NJCF to come, and a number of representatives from the New Jersey Conservation Foundation are here to give a presentation about the preserve. They're happy to come and tell us more about the background, what their intent is, to talk about the preservation stewardship plan that they have had and are using currently, but also to get some more opportunity for comments from residents. You know, having open space is such a wonderful thing for our township, and we want to make sure that all our open space is you know, balanced in a way that our residents get the value, and if we have incidental concerns that go with it or planning that goes with it, that we have an opportunity to work together. So I thank NJCF for coming. They're going to do a slide presentation first, and they may make some other remarks. And then after that, we'll invite the public to engage as well, make some comments. Allison, did you want to introduce folks?
Sure. Do I have to press this?
We can hear you.
Oh,
so
okay,
you
great.
can-
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you. I just want to first start by thanking everyone for coming, and thanking the Township Committee for inviting us and providing a forum for us to talk with you about the preserve and to hear your questions and your comments. My name is Allison Mitchell. I am the co-executive director at the Conservation Foundation. Jay Watson, also co-executive director, is here this evening as well. Tim Morris, our stewardship director, is going to be doing the presentation, and then Rebecca Bazinski, who's a project manager and is our person really on the ground out at the preserve on a day-to-day basis, is here, as is Emil DeVito, our staff ecologist. Louise Wilson, our board president, is here, and Wendy Mager, our vice president of our board. So you mentioned the approach that we had talked about. That's great. We're going to just talk for no more than like 20 minutes, and I understand from Dante that there is no time limit, so it sounds like everybody's going to have an opportunity to speak, which is great. The preserve, as Dante was saying, is a really wonderful place. I know it's so clear that it's loved by so many people, which is so wonderful to see, and it's a wonderful resource for the community. And there is a lot of really good work going on out there that you'll hear more about. But there's also some concerns, as Dante referenced, that have been expressed by neighbors of the preserve in particular, and we're eager to understand those concerns and address them. We've spoken with a number of neighbors particularly over the course of the last, I'd say, 6 weeks or so, and we hope that tonight's going to be another opportunity to hear what the community is feeling and thinking and ideas, and understand better and get feedback. So I'm going to turn things over to Tim Morris to give the presentation.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all the committee members for having us here. We appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk about the preserve and to hear feedback. We really do want to hear concerns, and we want to address concerns. I'm going to pull the screen down so we can start with the slide show.
We're gonna go around, right?
Is there a way to make the audio louder in the building?
Was I talking?
Well, maybe we'll just ask anyone who's speaking just to maybe hold one of those mics and bring it right up to them. That should help Lori.
But we shouldn't push it off when we're not speaking.
No, as long as you have it on the line position, it should be. We'll take a look. Oh, you actually. So the one that you have, you push it down to mute. So if you just leave it, it should.
Oh, okay. Too late.
Monte, if you want to give those lights.
Yeah.
Can everyone see, or do you need those lights out? Maybe a few of them? You don't mind, Tam? Thank you, Tam.
All right, if I'm not speaking into the mic enough, please let me know. So again, I appreciate everyone coming out to speak with us, to hear what we have to say about the preserve, and to let us know, your feedback. Oh, okay, thank you. Right there. Okay. So I'll apologize if I don't get this right, but I'm going to try to keep talking into the mic. So Alice introduced me. My name is Tim Morris. I'm the Stewardship Director for New Jersey Conservation Foundation. I'm going to start by just talking a bit about the Conservation Foundation so everyone knows who we are. I've been proud to work for the Conservation Foundation for about 22 years now. And my role as the Director of Stewardship is I manage the department that takes care of all the properties that we own around the state. So we have been around since 1960. We're a private, nonprofit conservation organization. We're a 501c organization. And we preserved over 140,000 acres of land throughout New Jersey in that time since 1960. We currently own and manage 27,000 acres of property that we own. Those properties are all managed for natural resource protection and enhancement, and they're also open to the public to use for things like hiking and bird watching and horseback riding. On those properties, we have 75 miles of trails that we've created and that we manage. We have also 144 easements, both farmland preservation easements and conservation easements, that total about 5,000 acres. And in addition to the work we do in preserving land and in stewarding properties, we also have a very robust policy team that works statewide on land use policy and energy policy. I should say also, so you have a sense, our organization has about 32, 33 staff members. Okay, so a bit about Rainbow Hill at Saraland Mountain Preserve. So this property is 1,150 acres about, and it spans the county border. It's in Hillsborough Township and it's in East Amwell Township. The portion in Somerset County is owned by the County of Somerset. The portion in Hunterdon County is owned by New Jersey Conservation Foundation. But we have a joint management agreement between our organization and the county so that we play a role in managing the county land. The preservation of all these properties, I think there was maybe 5 or 6 acquisitions altogether in both counties, was managed by, the work was done by our own land conservation professionals, as well as the staff at Somerset County Planning Department. And the actual work to preserve these properties took over 16 years. It was a very long undertaking. The most recent of those acquisitions closed in December of 2020, and those were the properties that we purchased, the Air Park property, or many people call it the old Adams Air Park property with the lake, and also the Wurtsville Industries property, or as many people know it, the Denton property. And those closed in December of 2020. Altogether, all these properties, it took $17 million of funds raised to acquire these properties. That was a lot of public funds, state funds, funds from the counties, funds from both towns, as well as private and foundation funds. So 17 million altogether. In addition to the work in negotiating these deals and in raising those funds, there was also a tremendous amount of work that was done both by our staff and by Somerset County in cleaning up the properties, because these properties had previous uses on them, right? We removed 12 derelict buildings. We closed 9 wells. We removed 2 septic tanks, 7 underground fuel storage tanks, and 3 above-ground storage tanks, some of which still had fuel in them. And also scattered refuse on properties and a very large old farm dump on one property. And in total, we removed 20 full 30 cubic yard dumpsters of tires and debris from the property. There's still some work to be done out there. There's a couple of old cars out by the lake that we'll be working on. We already are working on trying to remove. This slide just shows, just illustrates some of that work. Some of the fuel tanks that were removed. I think that top one might be the underground fuel tank that we didn't know about that we found that was for airplane fuel at the old air park. And then some tires and some other debris that was on the property. We didn't do this alone. In addition to Somerset County, there was also a lot of partners, both funding partners and other partners. And you can see a list of them here, different departments within New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, the Green Acres Program, and also Offices of Natural Resource Restoration. Both counties, Hillsborough Township and East Amwell Township, and also some other private conservation organizations, including Sauerland Conservancy, who has been a tremendous partner in the work that we've done here. Before we even finished closing on the final acquisitions in 2020, back in 2018, we started working on planning, all right? How is this property going to be managed? And in order to do the best possible job we could at planning for the management of the property, we hired Mike Van Cleef. Some of you might know Mike Van Cleef's name. He's a very well-respected ecologist who specializes in preserved land management and has particular expertise in white-tailed deer management and invasive species management. He's a PhD ecologist. He works for Friends of Hopewell Valley Open Space, but he also does consulting in his own firm. And we hired Mike and Gemma Milley, who is an expert botanist who did a lot of the field work for this project. So the planning took well over a year to complete. Mike and Gemma spent hundreds of hours out on the property. They, I want to say they surveyed every inch of the property. They certainly surveyed every acre of the property. They mapped every plant community. They mapped every rare species population, every water resource, every wetland, vernal pools, all of the ecological information that you might need to determine how to best manage a property, they have compiled into this management plan. In addition to looking at the natural resources, they also identified the challenges, right, the threats to the natural resources. Things like the overpopulation of white-tailed deer, things like the invasive species populations, the emerald ash borer, all those kinds of things. So they looked at the resources, they looked at the challenges, and then they solicited public input. And they did this in 2 different ways. They conducted a public survey that was available online to take. It was publicized both on our website through a press release and also through our stakeholders. And we had 160 respondents, which for this kind of survey is a really respectable number. In addition to the public survey, Mike and Gemma also interviewed a number of individuals from stakeholders. And I have a couple slides here that just show some of those individuals, those 2 slides. So you'll probably see some names that you recognize, but folks from both counties, folks from East Amwell Township, Peter Fick and Catherine Fullerton, representatives from Hillsborough Township, Somerset County, Hunterdon County, the Amwell Valley Trail Association, the Amwell Valley Hounds, at least one hunter was interviewed. Sauerland's Conservancy was interviewed. And Jay Watson, DNR Greenway Land Trust, who's now our co-executive director. So it was a wide swath of people that were interviewed to contribute information to the plan. Once the data was collected on the natural resources on the property, the challenges were analyzed, and the public input was gathered, the plan made some very specific management recommendations. Most of those management recommendations are geared towards natural resource protection and enhancement and restoration. Some of those recommendations are also geared towards recreation and public access. And the recreational components really focus on the trail system, on trails so that people can get out and walk on the property and use the property. So the management plan was completed in 2019, and it was made available on New Jersey Conservation Foundation's website. Now, we have started to work on implementation of that management plan after the completion of it in 2019, and even more so after the final properties were preserved in 2020. And the early activities that we did really focused more on the natural resource management activities. So we started our deer management program. We have hunters hunting deer on the property. Also, we had Dr. Jay Kelly from Raritan Valley Community College do a census of all the deer. Every deer on the property was counted, and it came up with 125 deer per square mile, which is a very, very high number, even for central New Jersey. We started working with Natural Resources Conservation Service to plan and to fund restoration of early successional habitats, so old farm fields, meadows. We also worked with Sauerland's Conservancy and with volunteers planted more than 2,000 trees and shrubs, native trees and shrubs for forest restoration. And that work is ongoing. We worked with our farmers to introduce more ecologically sensitive farming practices on the property. Those include experimenting with trying out some organic practices. And in fact, we hired a consultant from Rodale Institute in Pennsylvania to come out and be a resource to help with some of those practices. We also found a breeding population of bobolinks in one of the fields, and so we worked with the farmer to do delayed mowing of that field so that the bobolinks could breed successfully. So those were some of the things that we did on the ecological front early on. And more recently, this year, we haven't turned our attention, but we've also started to do more work in the area of recreation and public access. And so this year, we blazed 10 miles of hiking and equestrian trails on the property. Now, I want to emphasize that of that 10 miles of trails that we've blazed as part of our current trail system, over 90% of those trails were existing before we started managing the property, before we bought the property. There were trails that were created and maintained by the equestrian groups that use the property and the hunters. And so we kind of looked at what was available in the trails that were there and chose a system that would make sense. And then we blazed it so that people who don't know the property so well could use the trails without getting lost. We also provided parking both at North Hill Road and then more recently parking off of our driveway at Wurtsville Road. And we'll get more into the parking in a moment. I know we really want to focus on that, but I want to say a few more things about the trails. So here's just a couple of photos of trails. There's trails in the woods, there's trails through fields, and there's a representative trail marker that we've used to blaze the trail system. I should say that it wasn't just a staff that did this work. We have a tremendous volunteer group that comes out and has done a tremendous amount of work, really great work for us out there. So we're very thankful for them. I should also say a couple of our volunteers are here tonight, so thank you for coming as well. This is a trail map of the current trail system. And I don't know if you'll be able to see, you can see my mouse. So this is North Hill Road, and then this is Wurtsville Road. And on this trail system, for those of you that can't see, it shows a network of trails, a yellow trail, white trail, red trail, a blue trail, and some green connecting trails. So these trails, again, add up to about 10 miles of trails, and 90% of them were from the existing trail network that was on the property. Oh, Rebecca has some handouts of this trail map if anybody would like one. If there are not enough to go around, this map is on our website, and you can download it from there. Okay, so what I wanted to show you was this is the current trail layout. Now this map is from the management plan. So if you look at the management plan and you go through all the appendices, you'll find this map. But this map shows this, the green lines on this map are the trails that existed on the property when we started to manage the property. This is when the management plan was done. These were all the trails that were mapped out with a GPS unit when they were doing their work. So these trails that existed when the management plan was done, before we really started managing, these trails add up to 23 miles of trails that existed previously. And so what we've done is taken a subset of these 23, and we have created our trail system with essentially 9 miles of trails from this trail system, plus an additional mile of trail that we created. So I just wanted to show this slide just to demonstrate what was there previously and kind of what we've actually done when we say we put in 10 miles of trails. I think I want to go back to this map. Because I want to talk about parking, and of course this is where a lot of the concerns are coming from, issues surrounding parking at North Hill Road and traffic to that parking. And I want to start by saying that the management plan calls for 2 parking areas, a main parking area on Wurtsville Road and a auxiliary parking area on North Hill Road in the location where the current parking is. When we started to work on this trail system and we started contemplating getting people out on the property, the location on North Hill Road was chosen in part because it was a location where previously hunters had parked, and they would park and unload their quads, and the farmer had parked his equipment there. There was an area where that had been impacted by that parking, that had compacted the soils, where gravel had been put down to facilitate a parking surface. And so with that condition of that ground there, it was an easier place to create a first parking area. Now, as you know, we opened the preserve, many of you know, I'm sure, we opened the preserve November 3rd, and we got a tremendous amount of publicity from that event. There was just a lot of press about it, and suddenly everyone was excited, and a lot of people came out to visit the property. And I will be the first to admit that we did not anticipate the number of people that came out, especially in those first 2 weeks, to the parking area. We immediately heard about it from our neighbors, from the community. And hearing the concerns, we realized that we needed to start taking steps to address those concerns immediately. So before I get into what we have been doing and what we are planning to do to address those concerns, I'll say that the concerns, I think, fell into a couple of categories. One was simply increased traffic on North Hill Road, given that it is a narrow, quiet road. Another concern expressed was the way that people were driving on North Hill Road, not driving too fast or driving inconsiderately, not pulling over to let cars pass, those kinds of things. A third thing that we heard, especially from the neighbors right next to the parking area, was that the parking lot was too small for the number of people that were coming, and the parking lot would fill up, and then people would arrive to a full parking lot, and then there was confusion, and then there was people trying to turn around, not knowing where to go, and that was compounding the problem. And so, so these are the things that we did in the in the week that followed the first weekend when the property was open. So we talked to the 2 closest neighbors of the parking area to better understand what their concerns were, to better understand what they were seeing in real time, and to let them know what we were planning to do to start to address these problems. I'm going to skip around here a little bit. One of the things that came out of those discussions that is not related to the parking is that we found that one of the neighbors was very concerned about a part of the red trail that left the parking area that went along his property boundary. And he asked us to consider moving that leg of the red trail. We told him that we would consider doing that, and we have moved that. We have rerouted that section. So now, if you look at the trail maps, the red trail is now kind of a lollipop where it follows away from his house along tree line until it goes out to the woods, so it stays further from his property boundary there. One of the things that we did immediately, because of this issue of too many cars coming and trying to park and finding that the lot was full and there was confusion and problems, we created a temporary overflow parking lot. So we opened the gate, the locked gate, and let people park in the field adjacent to the parking area. We roped out an area, and every Friday afternoon we'd open it up and leave it open for the weekend when we get the most traffic, so that while it wasn't addressing the traffic on North Hill Road, it alleviated the problem of too many cars there at once and not having a place to go. So we did that, and we opened and closed that parking area and had it open on the weekends. In addition to that, we sent a message to our staff, to our volunteers, to our partner organizations, and we also posted the same message on our website where we have information about the preserve, and also at the parking area. And the message was, please drive slowly, respect the neighbors, drive with good etiquette for a narrow road, let people pass. And if you do come to the property and the lot is full, please come back another time. So we put that message out there. In addition to these things, we also started to be in communication with the township about the traffic on North Hill Road. We found out the town was putting up the traffic counter to start recording how many cars were going by, and also the radar speed limit sign, which I think helps to keep people honest and abide by speed limits. So we really appreciate the town doing that. We also started looking at options for temporary parking off, not accessed from North Hill Road. And so we identified an area that we thought we could direct cars to park as a main parking area. And so we kind of ran that idea by the town. The town thought it was a good idea to try to get traffic off of North Hill Road. And so we opened that parking, that temporary, we're calling it sort of a temporary main parking. It's not going to be the main parking forever, but for now, it's what we want to be the main parking. We're directing people to park there on our website. We're also asking Google Maps to direct people to go there and park there as the main parking lot. And I'll show you the location of that. I think, okay, so again, here's the map of the property. Again, this is Wirtsville Road. So it's located up the main driveway to the old Adams Air Park. So the entrance is across from Rainbow Hill Road. We have that gate open when we can and have this parking available. The one issue with this parking is that it's not surfaced. It's grass. And after a heavy rain, we need to close it for a couple of days. But our plans are to have this parking area open as much as conditions allow and direct people there as much as possible so that they park there instead of North Hill Road. And we think that it's going to be effective in taking pressure off of North Hill Road, taking traffic away from there. We think that it's going to be, but we're not going to rely upon that. We are going to keep a close eye on both of these parking areas, and we're going to keep a close eye on the traffic on the trails themselves. And if we have to make adjustments, we're going to make adjustments, and we're going to listen to the community, and we're committed to making this something that works, and that works for us, and that works for the community. So, we've already talked to, quite a few of the neighbors or exchanged emails with quite a few of the neighbors. If you're someone that's emailed me and I've emailed you back and offered to have a conversation, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Here's the contact information for myself, for Allison Mitchell, and for Rebecca. These are our direct lines as well as our email addresses. So please, give us feedback, reach out if you have a concern. If there's something you see that you think is being done right, you can let us know that. If there's something you have a concern about, please let us know that. The URL at the bottom of the screen here is the web page about this property, where you'll find the management plan if you want to look at the management plan. I hope that you do. Please note, if you go to this page, it is at the top of the text. It says management plan. You can click on that, download it. It's pretty dense, but it's interesting. But also make sure that if you do that, there's either one or two additional links that are the appendices to the management plan. Is it one or is it two? One link that is the appendices. And that has a lot of the maps, so you want to look at that probably as well. And if you look at the management plan and you have questions or comments, then please reach out to us about that too. So again, I appreciate you listening. That was a little bit longer than I wanted to go on, but I hope I provided useful information. And please, we want to hear feedback. We want to hear feedback now, but also, again, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you.
All right, Tim, thank you for that presentation. So before we move to getting public comment, let me just give you a data point here. So as Tim indicated, when the Township Committee first got some concerns from residents, we put up an electronic sign on North Hill Road, and it both alerted folks that the speed limit there is 25 miles per hour, but it also is able to take data for the number of cars that passed, and let me give you some information from that. So we were able to download some data for a 7-day period from the beginning of when we put up the sign. So this is from December 11th through December 17th, and during that 7-day period, there were 55 vehicles a day that passed the sign. Now, I don't know how many went up and down North Hill Road before the preserve opened. But 55 vehicles a day on average. Each day, the numbers were for that week: 56 on Monday, 43 on Tuesday, 57, 53, 60, 57, and 58. And in terms of the speed, the average speed was 25 miles per hour. And that's a Monday, the average was 20 miles per hour. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday were each 25 miles per hour. Sunday was 22 miles per hour. And if you look at the graph of the data, most of the cars were traveling at the speed limit or slightly below or above it. There were a couple instances. I think there was one person going like 50 miles an hour, somebody going 45. So there were some obviously crazies. There were 3 of those that week. I'm not sure what the context was, but at least in terms of those data points, 55 vehicles a day during that week, average speed 25 miles per hour. We're going to continue to leave the sign up for a bit. We want to gather some more data, see what happens over time, but for what it's worth, I don't know if this is representative or not, but that's what we were able to put down, and hopefully folks at least are looking at that flashing sign and seeing the speed limit. So with that, Allison, does anyone else from NJCF want to make any comments before we open to the public?
I don't think so. I think we're just eager to hear people's questions and comments, and then maybe some of the other staff might respond depending on the question or comment.
Excellent. Any objection to opening to the public at this time on this matter? All right, hearing without objection, hearing no. Anyone from the public would like to come up to the front of the microphone and make a comment? Yes, please. And by the way, for anyone who hasn't heard this, in the past folks used to provide their address, but as the clerk reminded me, Daniel's Law passed in the meantime, and that provides that the residential addresses for certain folks, including law enforcement, judges, prosecutors, and the like, need to get redacted, taken out of documents and out of minutes. So it's frankly easier for us just to have someone say who they are and whether they're a resident of the township or not. And that way, our clerk doesn't have to spend time redacting documents or taking things out of a video. So if folks didn't know, that's the reason why we say now please just come up and give your name and say whether you're a resident. So Andrea, Oh, yeah, please come right up to the mic. If you'd like a chair, we can give you that. Yeah, if you can put it right on that side, yes. And then pull that nice and close so we can make sure. We have lots of folks who listen on video.
Hi, greetings. Andrea Bonnet, a 48-year resident of East Amwell Township, and I won't give my address, although everybody probably knows it. I would like to begin by reading a letter that I mailed today to the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, and I apologize for not mailing it sooner. I had a little trouble with my computer and my printer. But anyway, it's in the mail, and I'll read it. As you probably know, I have been a longtime supporter of the Sauerland Regional Citizens Planning Council, also known as the Sauerland Conservancy, since its founding in 1986. I am also a longtime supporter of NJCF. It has recently been receiving annual donations of a significant amount, which I will not specify, resulting from a real estate transaction I conducted several years ago. Because of that, I was delighted to attend the opening event at the Rainbow Hill Preserve on North Hill Road in East Amwell and Hillsborough Township earlier this year. Soon afterwards, I became aware of a number of issues related to the use of that property. And of course, some of this has been discussed already this evening. First, North Hill Road residents were complaining about careless driving of visitors on that very narrow road and also of trespassing on private, much of it preserved lands there. In an attempt to deal with these complaints, I believe that NJCF has created a larger parking lot. And again, this has been discussed tonight, but I didn't have this information. Parentheses, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't gone there to look for myself. Now I am beginning to wonder if the bigger picture is if this is the best use of this property. Not every bit of the Sauerlands needs to be systematically covered with hiking trails and parking lots. There are plenty already. I personally have 3 books devoted to describing hiking trails in our area. Walk the Trails in and Around Princeton by Sophie Glovier, Guide to Walking Trails in the Hopewell Valley by Phobos, and Sauerland Hiking Atlas by Kevin Berkman and the Sauerland Conservancy. And it's my understanding that the former Hillsborough Country Club lands are very likely to be preserved. That's right across Wurtsville Road, I think most of you know. And added to the collection of hiking trails. It is therefore my hope that it is not too late to de-develop this use of this particular property and to direct hikers to the many other options in this area. This huge parcel should remain in its wild natural state. Because of the overpopulation of deer, I do support continuing to allow hunting at Rainbow Hill. So because of a comment I made on Facebook recently, I've gotten some information already from co-director Allison Mitchell, which I thank you for. Given the Green Acres money that went towards this purchase, in no way do I believe that the public should be prevented from entering and that hikers, hunters, and horseback riders should have access. But my biggest concern is I do not believe it is necessary to turn this into a park. NJCF does not have to encourage large groups of hikers by installing 20-car parking lots. The definition of quote-unquote access does not necessarily have to include providing an exercise facility when there are already quite a few in this area. These 3 books of mine spell out some of those. Also, I thought I had more copies, but I brought a few copies of the OWL map, which includes some information about Sauerland's recreation areas. There are, I think, 4 copies. Oh, I didn't put them out. I'll put them on the table. Sorry. Given the fragility of the Sauerland forest, it is my hope that for this particular preserve, emphasis could be on the latter. This should be primarily a wilderness experience. Large numbers of visitors will necessarily have a negative impact on the wildlife. I do not know exactly what input was solicited from the public, although it was helpful, the slide that you gave this evening. What they were told about the plans for planned usage by the public and parking lots, and when such contacts were made. How many hunters were contacted? Now, tonight we know it's 1. The Amwell Valley Trail Association, the Sauerland Conservancy, East Amwell Township. Since I don't know what position, if any, the township, whether it was the planning board or the environmental commission and or the township committee, took with regards to the development of this preserve, but with the general concerned reaction of area residents, I hope you will take a hard look at it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Francis? Yes, please.
Hi, how are you? My name is Michael. I'm an East Amwell Township resident. First off, I'd like to thank you guys for putting this together and inviting the conservation here to speak with us. I think it was a great first step, and I applaud you guys for coming out and speaking with us this evening as well. I've got a slew of concerns and questions. I won't air them all out here. Some of them have been addressed. I did write a nice letter or email to both you, Tim, and Rebecca that went unanswered. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you in the future. But that being said, what are the plans to ensure that the people that are using the trails stay on the trails and don't wander off? How are you going to manage that?
Well, I would say that we are going to put up some signage. I did talk to one of the other neighbors yesterday about putting some signage near or at the parking area at North Hill Road, asking people to stay on trails, in particular in the fields that are open for or being used for agriculture. And that would include all those fields that back up to the neighbors along North Hill Road. We certainly would want to try to avoid having people use that area. Mm-hmm. Although I believe, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, because certainly folks that have local knowledge might know better than me, but I believe there's a bridle path that goes along those houses. Is that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know, okay. So I guess that's something that we'd want to look at if there was an historic use of a bridle path there. But in those areas that are near those homes, and the areas that are being used for agriculture, there we are going to direct people to stay on the trails in those areas. In other areas that are forested, not being used for agriculture, and not over by those homes, I don't know that we're going to have signage there that says to stay on the trails, but in that area, we can certainly do that.
Aside from signs, and I appreciate the fact that we're looking out for the agriculture. How about the safety of all the residents there? I have 2 little girls that play in the backyard with fields that butt up against it. New Year's Day, I look out my backyard and there are 4 hikers off the trail walking through the field towards my little girls. Now, I don't know whether you have kids, but as a father, I am very upset about that. I did not move to Manners Road. I did not move to Amwell Road. I moved to North Hill, a very quiet, protected area that is now being attacked. When I asked the people to continue, go back on the trail and return to the trail, there were some words exchanged. And they said they were walking to the road to go up to their car. So is North Hill Road now an additional trail? And I know the answer to that. But that's how people are looking at it. People have no respect for anybody else. There's a sign right there that says, please clean up your trash. People do not respect other people. And unless we have a safe, well thought out plan to protect the residents as well as the agriculture, everybody is unsafe.
I think that when it comes down to it, I can't say that I can control every hiker that's out using the property. I can't promise to do that. There are steps that we can take to try to avoid someone thinking they can cut out to North Hill Road from the trails, from the property. We can make it very clear in our maps. We can indicate private property boundaries very clearly. We can post private property boundaries. But it's not something that I can promise that we can control every hiker and what they might do on the property. It's just not. I don't think that happens anywhere in the state on state lands or other private preserves. It's beyond what I can promise.
Okay, and I can appreciate what you're saying there. So with 1,100 acres, why do we have trails running that close to the residents on that street? Why are we even inviting that type of traffic, foot traffic, pedestrian traffic, that close to the residents along North Hill?
Well, I think that in the trail planning, we have really tried to keep our trail system aside from the access point, and when the trail leaves the access point, it hugs the forest and stays away from the houses as much as possible, and then stays on the far side of fields as much as possible from the residences. And that's one, we, in planning the trail system, didn't want to have neighbors impacted by the hikers, and we also don't think that the hikers want to be hiking in close proximity to the residences. So we did, aside from where we leave the access point, parking, we really try to stay as far away from those homes as we can with the trail system.
I don't think we accomplished that with the red trail.
Okay, I mean, we can look at the layout of the trail. And especially if there are points, I mean, I'm not looking at a map right now. We can look at the layout of the red trail, but we can also look at, are there places along the red trail where somebody might think they can go this way off towards North Hill Road? And we've certainly done that in other properties around the state where if people are going off the trail in a particular place because they think that it's a trail that goes that way or because they think it's a shortcut, putting up signage that's, trail system the wrong way, you're leaving the trail system, there's no access to public streets in this direction, directing people the opposite way. So we can look at those things too and figure out where along the trail that might be appropriate or necessary to do, and we'd be, happy to try to do that.
You had also mentioned in your presentation that the secondary lot that you've opened up over on Wurtsville, or off of Wurtsville, I should say, is, I guess, not the permanent, it's a temporary main. What is the solution? What is the long-term plan for the main lot?
Well, I don't think that we yet have a long-term plan for the main lot. I mean, the management plan calls for a main lot on Wurtsville Road because there are fields along Wurtsville Road and there is good access, right? It's a much better road to have traffic on, right, to reduce the impact. Exactly where it will go, I think, the plan does call for it to be near the entrance to that driveway that I described earlier. But I think that, before we proceeded with planning that, we would take a look at all the options and figure out what works the best. Yeah, that's, I'll also say this, if there is another property that becomes available that is preserved, that has suitable options for parking, then we'd also consider that as well.
I don't know the property inside and out, but it seems like there's other alternatives along Wurtsville Road that makes it a little bit healthier environment for all of the kids and families that live on North Hill.
I think that I agree with you that, and the management plan agrees with you that the main parking is meant to go with access from Wurtsville Road, and not North Hill Road, and that is the intention. And when I talk about temporary being the current solution that we're trying, when I say that area is temporary, I don't mean, I hope that no one takes that to mean that it's temporary and then we direct traffic back to North Hill Road at some point. That's not it at all. This I'm calling this temporary. We're calling this temporary because we know that the location where we're directing people to park right now might not be the permanent location along Wurtsville Road, but it'll be the location for now until we do the work to plan and develop something that's more permanent. Mm-hmm. And I think that what we're working with right now is going to work. But again, if it doesn't, then we're going to try something else. We're going to find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me just jump in to say, the intention of the Township Committee is to, open this dialogue, which is what we were doing, in our second meeting on this, and that, at least as we see it, this creates the opportunity for a dialogue back and forth. I'm sure a number of residents are going to have suggestions. I appreciate that the Conservation Foundation is here listening, and I think will lead to a good discourse, and I think some good decisions. And so this just so you all know, this is the end of the process, and I appreciate the residents are coming and raising their concerns. Did you have anything else, or can we see if others have items, Michael? I know you have a
Dante's giving
slew.
me the boot.
No. Well,
No,
if
that's
you have
fine.
something else important to raise today, please do. I just want to make sure everyone has a chance. And
Do you know when the speeding sign will be put back up? Because I noticed yesterday it has been removed.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Let me find out. I thought it was still there. So
Yeah.
we'll find out.
Yeah. Not that I want it, but I think it's good information to have.
Thanks for raising it to my attention.
Yeah.
We'll ask DPW.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. One last question. With the parking lot on North Hill, what are the plans to enforce or, I guess, dissuade people from utilizing it in the evening and nighttime hours? There isn't currently any type of barrier. There isn't a chain. There isn't. I've noticed along Wurtsville, the other parking lots have some of the parking lots have these, or access ways have these gates up. I do notice vehicles coming up and down. There's cars parked there early on. There's been cars parked there after hours. Again, leading back to the unsafe environment for the residents and more so the families there.
Yeah, and I was just talking with the most adjacent neighbor about this yesterday, and the one issue that he was telling me about was someone. It was someone that was coming back from a hike late and driving out of the parking lot a little bit late. That kind of thing is pretty common with parking areas for preserves or parks, and would be harder to enforce. But if there's an issue with cars, like let's say kids going there at 10 o'clock at night or something, what I will do is go and have a conversation with the state police. I'll tell them that we're having this problem. I'll tell them that we are going to be monitoring a lot, and that I want to know what's going to happen when I call them up at 10 o'clock at night and need help with enforcement. And so set that up before before we need to have them actually come out. And then, when and if that does happen, we will follow up with the police. We'll go out there with the police. I'll go out there myself if I have to, and we'll deal with it.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I look forward to more conversation. I appreciate that, but it invites situations that it could be too late. Kids, yes, kids partying, having fun, so be it. A predator, or someone, a thief, whatever. It invites horrific situations where by the time you find out about it, or the police get there, or the police find out about it, it could potentially be too late. I will leave you at that. But thank you for your time. I do appreciate you coming out. And
Michael, thank you.
for putting this together.
I'm just going to put some of my cards here. When people come up, they can grab a card if they want.
Yes, Tam?
Thank you for coming in, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I just have a question. I
Tam,
noticed
would you
that-
pull that mic really close to you? Want to make sure people can hear it.
Sure.
Thanks.
I noticed that all the parking is in East Amwell, and there's no parking in Hillsborough. Is there anything precluding you from putting parking on the Hillsborough side once that yellow trail is completed, the one that's under construction?
Well, I think I don't disagree that it might be appropriate to also have parking on the Somerset County side. I think that wherever we introduce new parking, I think we want to be very thoughtful about it, and especially if it's on the Somerset County side, then have some really thoughtful conversations with Somerset County Parks and Somerset County Planning Department about where that would go. So I think that, I mean, if our current solution, and we're going to be really monitoring it closely, but if our current solution isn't doing the job, then we will look for alternatives. But I think that where we are asking people to park right now, you know, one of the benefits of it is it's inside the property, it's up our driveway, it's not next to any neighbors. So we're going to start with that and see how that works. And if we have to look for other alternatives, then we'll look for other alternatives.
I appreciate that. I'm just looking on the Hillsborough side. There is some frontage on Wirtzville that does not appear to be wooded, so it looks like there is room for some parking. So I'm curious if there's something with your agreement with Somerset County that precludes you from putting parking on that side.
I would say there's nothing in specifically that precludes us from putting parking on that side, nothing specifically with the county. I would say that, you know, we're trying to follow we started out trying to implement the parking areas that were called for in the management plan. Now we're looking for alternatives. We found an alternative we think is going to work. We're going to see how that goes, and we'll, you know, if we need to consider alternatives, then we'll consider other alternatives.
Okay. Then my only comment would be maybe you'd consider that one a little sooner rather than later. My
Okay.
suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Others, Francis?
Hi, Francis Gavigan. I appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation and the effort you're making to listen to the residents and to do things about it. And part of probably the problem you're encountering in these growing pains is you're not familiar with the area and how it's been used by local residents and the equestrian community. Cider Mill Road, Wilizowitz Road, places in the back. The horse groups have lost trails, so they're going to be more likely to go over there. I've seen a group coming back from what will always be called the air park and getting complaints made to me that where you've put parking for 1 or 2 cars is where horses get in there, and the people don't know how to park, and the gate that exists from the old air park days is not the safest thing to get around. And so you've got the possibility of a horse spooking or banging somebody's car or things like that, maybe repositioning the gate or doing some things to consider, 1,200-pound beast getting in there, or even a couple cans of spray paint. I've already emailed the people who complained to me, and they'll be contacting you, I am assuming, and things like that. I appreciate the efforts you made for counting deer. Bambi is a common enemy for a lot of us, but not all of us. But there is another problem that has been popping up is the coyotes. And there are dogs and people in Delaware Township and in others who have, we're going to be coming into their whelping season, and they're going to have pups to eat, and they're going to feed, and they're going to be looking for, pocket-sized puppy snacks. And that would be a horrible thing. One of the advantages of the way the air park was used is the Ammo Valley Hounds. They would mow all those trails, and they would do things, and they were stopped from hunting through there because of a policy. Their dogs chase foxes or chase coyotes, and they don't catch them, unfortunately. But if you move a predator and aggravate it often enough, it's less likely to hang around or to build its dens there. So there is an advantage to reach out to the hunt and to the trail. I noticed in your list of people that you had contacted, you mentioned Trish Buckwalter, Gail Gardner, Steve Lundquist. Unfortunately, we lost Trish and some other things, so there are probably more current contacts to try to come up with a synergy that we try to facilitate. And one thing that happens when people are using trails, or they decide, I don't want to go 3 miles, I'm going to trailblaze and, have crosses. There are trail networks up in Mendham and some of the areas, and you'll have a trail. It's not just a big loop like you're going to be doing the Appalachian Trail. It'll cut over here, cut over there, and where people can then get back to. The red trail that's caused that gentleman so much grief seems to come to a point very close to the back of what I think is probably his house, and it's wooded there. So cutting a short branch trail could alleviate some of those problems, and where you would want to close off the red trail, fell a tree here or there, a dead ash, and people aren't going to necessarily want to go there and post it. Solar powered cameras at your parking area, so you would have a mechanism for monitoring or documenting the people who are not good stewards of either the land or good neighbors or things like that. There's nothing like a visit from the state police to modify behavior without you having to be the bad guy or things like that. We have a serious coyote problem. They come and sing to my critters and have for years, and they'll come right up. And I'm on I'm on the Unionville Vineyards end of Wartsville and have a vineyard across the street. And the deer and the coyotes and the other things, they'll come right up, on my property, right up to my house, 50 feet from the road. If there was a bell, they'd ring it. But mostly they, are probably hunting other people's cats and things like that. Hunting is going to be a necessary thing. The lifeblood of East Amwell are its farming community and the corollary businesses, the horse businesses, the boarding. The hay that the farmers make goes to feed the horses. They'll come down Rainbow Hill Road or Willizowitz or some other ways. So looking at ways that people could get into, your asset and to be, more beneficial if you work with the community and some of the people, and Dante's a great steward for that, then, I have backhoe, we'll travel. And things like that. There are things that can be done to where we can work together. And, it's a good start. Just do something,
I really appreciate all of your comments, and there's a lot that you talked about that I would like to follow up with you about.
Sure.
So I hope that we can talk.
Yeah, I'll talk to you after I'm here.
Great.
Everybody knows who I am, apparently.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francis. Anyone else from the public? Yes, Tracy?
Tracy Carluccio, 81 North Hill Road. Thank you for hosting this tonight and last meeting as well, and really appreciate that the Township Committee is interfacing with New Jersey Conservation Foundation for the community and lifted this up so, our voices could be heard. I just want to say a couple quick things. I think we have a tremendous array of issues here. We've heard many of them tonight. We heard some last meeting. And I think it would be really beneficial if New Jersey Conservation Foundation now took this up as a opportunity to involve the community in the planning, long-range planning, as well as immediate planning for the preserve. So at this point, I have two suggestions. One, I think there should be some meetings that are not at the Township Committee where people don't have to stand up and think about, are they on YouTube, just really more, informal meetings with the Conservation Foundation where people can come, speak up, and there can be an iterative process. And I think in order for people to want to do that, they have to know that there is nothing carved in stone up there. And I think what has been done up there already, I don't agree with a lot of it. I'm concerned about the environmental implications and the ecological implications, as well as how it's affecting our community. But I think that if everyone knows that nothing's carved in stone, this is an iterative process, the community can have a way that's neutral in order to be able to participate in what's going to be happening at the preserve going forward. That will go a long way for people to want to actually take part in considering going to meetings, and then perhaps out of that can come some sort of committee, like a community committee, like should have been set up in the very beginning, but that's water under the bridge. Let's try to fix that, and let's try to have a committee of some sort where could be interchange. People don't have to commit forever to be on it, but come and express and take part in the development of what's going to be the long-range planning up there, because this is just the very beginning of a forever park. And I don't like to use the word park. I like to use the word preserve because we never thought it was going to be a heavily used park. So we want to make sure that the abuses that have happened over there because of trespassing over the years, all of the impacts from the pipeline that are negative, all of that can be dealt with in a positive way. And the only way you're going to be able to do this is to do it with the community involved. So we can't be cut out anymore. We really need to be let in. Thank you.
Tracy, thank you. Just before you leave, I just was wondering if you might share one or two of the concerns you have about the ecological management we've been
About
doing.
what?
The ecological management you referenced. You have a lot of concerns about that.
I'm concerned because there have been a lot of rogue trails that have gone in over the years up there. People have gone up there with vehicles and driven around. We've stopped fires. We've called the state police over the last decades to go up there and take care of problems. And what has happened is there really has been areas that have been bared or that have been disturbed that need to heal. And I've seen plant communities of orchids trampled. And now they're going to forever be trampled now that the trails are permanent. So I think what we need to do is revisit those trails. And there are just places that people should not walk. We can't have trails everywhere. And the trails are wide. They invite people in. We already have a problem with trespassing up there. And when the summer comes, kids go down there, they, throw beer bottles. We're always concerned about fire. And those kind of things are going to be easier for people to do now that there's a parking lot and big wide trail saying, come on in. There needs to be some ecological effort made to narrow the entrances, to make it look like a preserve that you go for a stroll in, not a place that you bring your four-wheeler and abuse, or that you walk onto people's property in order, because you're wandering around and don't want to, finish the trail as it's mapped. I don't know why you're putting in a yellow trail. I don't know why there's a trail that goes around the perimeter of the whole thing. Are those good ecological decisions that were made? I know from speaking with you, Allison, that you know that there is some high-quality forest up there. We want to know, what are you going to do with that forest? Are you going to make sure that it's absolutely protected? We don't want people walking or wandering in that forest.
I'm wondering, thanks, Tracy, for this comment. I'm wondering, should we show the map that shows the forest area? Because as we were talking about the other day, there's sort of two forest areas. One which has been so heavily impacted over the years, as you said, that there's a lot of recovery work that needs to happen there. And then the other is an area that has really had much less disturbance, right? And it might be helpful for people to see on the screen kind of where the trails are in relation to that, because I think we completely agree with you that protecting the natural areas is very important. So I think, or is it too late is that just too complicated? We could also just share, maybe we just share it.
Two paper copies
Okay, yeah, maybe, right, it's probably too complicated. Oh, okay, right, maybe we could look at it after.
Well, there was a year of ecological assessment according to your report.
Right.
You know, it really takes 2 to 3 years, depending on weather, depending on, you know, all sorts of things, you know, climate changes that are occurring that we didn't expect. You know, disease comes in, like for our ash trees. That really takes a long time to find out where a trail should be and what areas should be disturbed by a parking lot even. So I'm concerned that ecologically there has not been enough research done, and that we really need to discuss this, not at this platform, because I don't want to take up more time at the Township Committee meeting, but I think we really need to delve into this. And I have a long list. And I think other people do too. And that's on top of the human changes that people are so upset about, justifiably.
Okay, yeah, let's definitely follow up and talk.
We're thrilled to have a preserved area, but we don't want what's supposed to be preserved ruined because it's not properly planned and managed.
No, I appreciate that. And if you have local knowledge about communities of plants that were not picked up in the you know.
We all do,
survey,
many of us do.
It would be great to go out one day and you can kind of, you know, show us and we can walk around and take a look.
We know bald eagles nested up there. Maybe they're not there right now. I don't know, but I didn't see that in the report. But we know they foraged there, but we know there were nests there. So that's just some bears run around. I mean, we see them on trail cameras. I mean, there's a lot going on up there that people don't know about, are not reflected in your report. Okay, thank you.
Could I say one thing about this? And this is a reflection on what you said. It's not to be argumentative at all. I would just say that the management plan that we've done and the ecological work that went into the management plan, I think, goes beyond almost any management plan for any other preserved land in the state. I would like to see the management plan that goes into more depth in terms of the ecological evaluations that were done that went into this plan. But having said that, I agree with you that, you know, taking a year and doing a plan isn't going to capture everything. And as you said in the beginning of your comments, it's, you know, the management plan is not set in stone. The management plan is a living document. The management plan is something that we want to, you know, that we can adjust based upon what is found out there. For example, you know, we manage the Franklin Parker Preserve down in the Pine Barrens. We have researchers from all over the place, from many different academic institutions out there. We're constantly, I think it's 20 years now since that property was preserved. We are constantly collecting more data on rare plants, on rare animals. We're figuring out where important habitats what we need to manage differently are. And that's the kind of process that I see as we go along will happen on this property as well. We didn't do a management plan and say, okay, stop, we already know everything. We're gonna spend time out there and we're gonna work with partners, including Sauerland's Conservancy and hopefully including local people with local knowledge. That's gonna add to the information that we have and it's gonna help adjust how we manage the property. So, I appreciate your comments and I think that that's important to note that we, you know, things aren't set in stone. And I see our ecologist, Emil DeVito, wanted to say something, so please.
I just want to mention about.
Emil, would you do me a favor and come up so that our folks who listen on the video can hear you? Thank you.
I'm not sick. I'm just, my wife needs surgery and I have to make sure she doesn't get sick. So that's why.
Of course.
I'm
This is, for the members of the public, Emil DeVito from the New Jersey Conservation Foundation.
I just want to elaborate a little bit on what Tim said about continuing to collect data. You know, we have Jay Kelly doing research, and hopefully we'll get more people to do research. It's just like at the Parker Reserve, we've moved trails, we've redesigned things, we've done restoration projects based on what people keep finding. Reptiles, amphibians, rare plants. Anytime we find something that needs protection, we change what we do. And we, you know, decide, okay, you know, that area we can't mow, this trail we have to move, this area we have to, you know, change our management scheme, and we do it constantly. And if you have data, if you know where there are copperhead dens, or if you know where there are rare orchids, or any sensitive plants, they don't necessarily have to be rare, just special. tell us where they are, and we'll manage for them. That's what we do, okay? And, you know, we're really good at that, far better than many other agencies. So, because we actually care about the rare plants, unlike many other agencies. So, and some of the rare animals too. So we're really good at that. We want people to tell us when they find rare things and sensitive habitats, where they see erosion problems, and we address them. That's why we have, Tim has a stewardship staff, and we solicit help from university scientists and experts, botanists, whomever we can get our hands on to come out and help us, and that's what we do. So you can feel comfortable that we're not going to do anything that harms sensitive habitats or sensitive populations of rare or special or unusual species. We pay very close attention to that.
Thank you. Rick?
Hi, Rick Wolf, resident, East Amwell Township. Thank you for coming in this evening. I'd like to make 4 points. First, nearly half the land in East Amwell Township is preserved, and a significant portion of the unpreserved land is farmland and open space. We are a leader in New Jersey in terms of preserving land and protecting the environment. That didn't happen by accident. It really started back in the 90s with a small group of people who were really determined to keep East Amwell the crown jewel that it is today. We have two here this evening. They both spoke, Andrea and Tracy. But we residents didn't accomplish that on our own. NJCF has been a terrific partner with East Amwell over the years in helping us preserve this land. I worked with NJCF in the 6 years I was on the Township Committee. I found NJCF to be very caring of the environment. So I truly believe that this property is in good hands with NJCF. A gentleman earlier said people do not respect other people. Truer words have never been spoken. They don't. That's in part why we live in such a complicated society with so many laws. If people respected other people, we wouldn't need all these laws. But trespassing is not limited to these open space parcels. I have a 139-acre farm. I'm surrounded by other farms. We have trespassing issues all the time. People just roam on your property like it's theirs. Ride their snowmobiles on your property like it's theirs. Hunt. They don't ask permission, they just do it. So the issue of trespassing isn't confined to this parcel in East Amwell. It's a problem throughout. The state police said one of the best ways to deal with that is to mark your property. But I will also point out that opening up this parcel to the public may actually prevent certain issues rather than encourage them. If somebody wants to go after young children, they're going to feel more comfortable doing that on a property where there aren't people. If the property is open to the public, you don't know who could come by. So to some extent, it may actually be safer than riskier by having it open to the public. The state police also recommended cameras, including dummy cameras. That tends to discourage the people who don't respect other people. But look, I do share your concerns. There are just a lot of bad people out there these days. And I would be really worried if I had young kids. I get that. I have kids, but they're four-legged, not two-legged. The third point I'd like to make, and I made this presentation a couple years ago at the county commissioners meeting. The county commissioners were having the same debate that we're having here tonight, which is, do you open these parcels that you're preserving to the public? And on the one hand, you have environmental issues like Tracy discussed. On the other hand, if you want people to support tax dollars going toward open space, if you want the next generation to support environmental issues, protecting wildlife, one of the best ways, if not the best way to do that, is to let people appreciate the open space. Let them actually walk it, let them enjoy it, let the kids see an owl in its natural habitat, see other animals in their natural habitat. That's the best way to garner support for people willing to spend on open space. So there is a balance between not having it so utilized that it actually harms the environment and allowing people to enjoy, particularly since their tax dollars paid for it. Finally, this property environmentally is much more likely to be protected in the hands of NJCF than it was in private hands. Just look at the pictures and the issues that were discussed at the beginning of your presentation. This property had environmental issues. The prior owner was not environmentally sensitive. The prior use wasn't an environmentally sensitive use. This property has suffered some significant abuse. That is not going to happen in the hands of NJCF. And that's not to say that NJCF can't do better. That's not to say that NJCF shouldn't take our input. But I am very confident that this property will do much better environmentally in the hands of NJCF than it would have done in the hands of private parties. So I am very supportive of the fact that NJCF now controls this. I looked at the management plan. It's 96 pages long. I didn't read every page, but I went through that management plan. That's an awfully comprehensive management plan, 96 pages. It's clear to me that a lot of thought went into what you're going to do with this parcel. That's not to say that more thought can't go into it. And you certainly should get as much input from Tracy as you can, because out of everyone in this township, she probably knows the most about environmental issues. So whatever input Tracy has, I would take it, and I would take it very seriously. But I am confident that this property will do much better in the hands of NJCF than it was doing in private hands. And so I'll just conclude by thanking NJCF for being a really good partner to East Amwell over the years, and being a big part of the reason why this municipality is as beautiful as it is. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Yes.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Brendan Fair. I live in Hillsborough, right down the road, and some of my neighbors would like to see a parking lot across the street from my house. I would like to not see that. So my question really goes to Louise Wilson of NJCF. Are there any properties in New Jersey that meet the criteria of a wildlife preserve without human encroachment? I understand taxpayers would pay for that. They don't necessarily have to have hiking trails to see value. A lot of people see a benefit in a wildlife preserve. So my question is, does NJCF only develop trails on all its properties, or does it actually manage any wildlife preserves? So that would be my question.
That's me.
Okay, that's
Would you mind coming up to the mic here, since we're being kind of lax about this and just having question and answer, but I think it's effective to get right to it unless anyone has a problem.
My
So
name's
please.
Louise Wilson. I'm a resident of Princeton, but formerly of Montgomery Township, and before that Hillsborough, 25-year resident of the Sourlands. And I'm president of the Conservation Foundation Board of Trustees. And I defer to staff on whether there are any properties that we own where we do not provide public access at all. But our mission is to preserve and protect land and natural resources throughout New Jersey for the benefit of all. And we take that very seriously. We're really good, as Emile pointed out, and as I hope Tim has persuaded some folks of, at protecting, enhancing, restoring natural systems, and connecting people with nature. That's at the heart of what we do. And a lot of the funding now, we have a bunch of funding that goes to, that specifically goes to farmland preservation. Oftentimes that does not come with public access. Sometimes it does. But all of the properties that we help to preserve or preserve ourselves, own, and manage that make use of Green Acres funding and most other public sources of funds that flow from the federal government or most often from the state, must afford public access. And so we do that in a way, as others have described, that is exquisitely sensitive to the natural resources on site, and gives members of the public who, may not live in close proximity to the great outdoors, a chance to enjoy it and learn about it and learn to love it and support ongoing preservation activities. I hope that's responsive to the question. I'm not sure. Yeah, I feel like, a little put on the spot, and I'm sorry if I'm, yeah.
So the question, to rephrase it, is there any criteria that you can think of a property that would be qualified to be wildlife preserve? It seems to me, and listening to everyone in this room, that you're shoehorning a hiking trail facility into what is essentially a wildlife preserve and a wetland. You're having problems with parking because the water comes down the Sauerland Mountain all the way across this whole region to the Shannock River. So you're always going to have a problem with flooding and parking lots. And in addition to all these other issues that people have surfaced.
And I hear your questions. I think you're posing questions that staff are better positioned to answer. I'm not trying to dodge the question. I would note that what was 23 miles of trail is now 10 miles of trail. So I would push back some on the shoehorning verb, gerund, whatever that is. I should know. I was an English major, but I was terrible at diagramming sentences. So I defer to staff to address, those ancillary questions that I just don't feel, fully qualified. I mean, I've been a board member for a long time. I'm obviously an enthusiastic supporter of both Conservation Foundation and the Sauerland Conservancy, and I love to be outdoors, and I'm crazy about plants and bugs, but I don't feel like I'm the right person to address at least some of the questions that you've raised.
Is there anyone on staff at NJCF that wants to speak to the issue of requirement of public access for land purchased by Green Acres funding?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I would ask Tim to answer the more specific question about preserves that don't have. I think you asked actually initially about trails, not just public access, right? Because there's sort of a difference. There's a bit of a difference, but right, but just a note before I do that. But we will answer your question because you're right. It was a specific question. It just occurs to me, in this case, with this preserve, there are so many people in the community that love it, but they do love it for different reasons. So there are people who would be really upset, including some of your neighbors, if it was only a wildlife preserve. some people would say, well, I really have always loved to walk there. And some people would say, well, I've always loved to ride my horse, which is not really, they're domesticated animals. They're wildlife the way that we're wildlife, right? So I just think, yeah, right. They can be wild, and so can we. So I guess I would just say, there's competing interests, and you sort of referenced that already about the parking, right? Like put the parking over there, not near me. No, don't put it over here near me, because it's understandable, right? There's going to be people with concerns about their own immediate property and even just their interest in the use of the preserve. So I just thought, it just occurred to me to comment on that too, because to make something a complete, wildlife preserve means that a lot of the uses that people have really seemed to enjoy historically, wouldn't be permitted. So I just, but Tim can answer more specifically about our public access on properties that are not publicly funded. I think, Louise noted correctly that public funding comes with requirements for public access. But.
Yes, certainly. The public funding that's used to preserve all these lands, and a lot of the 17 million that was used to preserve this property, comes from the Green Acres program, which requires public access. Also, for New Jersey Conservation Foundation, when we have properties that we didn't use Green Acres funding for, we also try to make them available to the public, because we think the public deserves to be able to get out and to use these resources. We think they deserve it, and we also think it helps our cause of getting people supportive of open spaces. In more direct answer to the question of, is there criteria for wildlife preserves as opposed to a place with public access or with, public access in the form of, say, a blazed hiking trail or blazed hiking trails? I would say that, I don't agree with the premise that those two things are mutually exclusive. I think that you can have hiking trails on a property and still have it be exceptional wildlife habitat and still have it be exceptional plant habitat. I think that part of that is balancing where the activities are focused. And what we tried to do in this management plan was to look at, okay, where are the really most sensitive resources and where are that may not be able to tolerate human activity as much, or a trail, and where are the places where a trail is appropriate. And so coincidentally or not coincidentally, in the plan, there is, the whole property is a special place. Don't get me wrong, it is a very special place. But there is some part of the forest that is a very special forest. It's a very special forest because it was never converted in its history to agricultural use. And so the soils that are there, the native soils, are intact. And so they're much less likely to be invaded by invasive species. They're much better habitat for all kinds of native and rare species. And so as it turns out, the 23 miles of trails that was existing on the property and being used by the Amwell Valley Hounds and the Amwell Valley Trail Association and the hunters, those trails are really outside of that old forest area where the most sensitive resources are. And we have a map, and I can leave a map on a table or pass it around after we're done here so people can look at it, and you can also find it in the management plan. You'd be looking for the map that shows 1930s, is it? 1930s forest cover, where there's still forest in 1930. You'll see, if you compare that to our trail system, the trails are all focused away from that area. There's one trail that skirts the edge of it, but that doesn't go into that forested area. And so, what we try to do, and this is what we try to do on other properties too, like Franklin Parker Preserve I mentioned, is have the public access on places that is appropriate for it, especially places where the human activity has historically been, and and keep the areas with the more sensitive resources more protected and more remote from like trails. And that's what we've tried to do here, and that's kind of our philosophy. And I'm sure Emil wants to jump in. Please.
Just to give sort of a statewide perspective. So I think your question about a wildlife preserve is trying to get to the heart of, are there places where people can't go? And in New Jersey, and I'd have to do some research to be sure that I'm 100% accurate, but in New Jersey, the federal wildlife refuges have wilderness areas. Holgate Wilderness on Long Beach Island, the Great Swamp Wilderness Area in Morris County. Some of them are, some portions of those places, of those wilderness areas, are off limits to people. For example, the Holgate Wilderness at the southern, well, not, actually you can walk, if you arrive by boat. The Great Swamp Wilderness has a trail network, but you can't go off the trail. The rule is you can't go off the trail. So there are a few places in New Jersey where the rules are extremely limited and you are supposed to stay in a designated spot and not go off the trail. The state natural area system, there are natural areas throughout the state of New Jersey. Kenlockwood Gorge is a natural area. It has a road through it. And people can fish in the stream, yet it's a state natural area. The Cooser Bog natural area in High Point State Park is a pristine, untouched wetland forest ecosystem, old growth forest, and it has a trail and a boardwalk. There's virtually no place where people are not allowed to go and at least experience a trail or some level of access. In fact, generally, every place in New Jersey, all public land or private land that's publicly accessible because of the Green Acres rules, people can go. But having said that, there are places where people can get to, and then there are other places where people are discouraged from trampling or impacting the natural resources that are super sensitive. So basically that's what we're trying to do here. The same thing, is mirror what goes on in federal wildlife refuges, state parks, state forests, state natural areas. We're just trying to mirror those same practices. I'd have to think about it, do some investigation to figure out if there's actually a place where no one's allowed to go. I mean, there are some places like that, some islands in Barnegat Bay, where the rules are that you can't even pull your boat up because they're bird nesting colonies, things that are so super sensitive that human disturbance, would really create havoc. There's no place like that in our preserve, in the Sourlands. We hope to know, and rare species move, right? So as we learn new things, we adjust. But we hope to know how to take care of those rare things that are super sensitive. We hope to restore the forest. We hope to bring some level of control to the deer. We feel like the place is large enough that we could actually have an impact and bring the deer population down from the devastating 125 deer per square mile, which is the biggest problem in the preserve by far. The deer invite in invasive species, pathogens. It's a cascading effect. And some things we can't do anything about, like emerald ash borer. Some things we can do something about, like trying to keep out off-road vehicles and people bringing in amphibian killing pathogens on the mud on their mountain bikes, all those types of things. Mountain bikes we don't allow. That's not to say that somebody can't get in there with a mountain bike. They can, but it's against our rules. So we try to think about all those things, and we try to strike a balance. And I think we're pretty restrictive, actually. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Yes. Could you come forward, please? Well, we just need anyone listening on video to be able to hear your question and answer all. Thank you.
My name is Heather Haviland. I have to say, I have so many questions because I felt like I was broadsided by this whole, and I hope we're not calling it a park, it's a preserve. There's just so many things. I don't even know where to start. A neighbor gave me this. I don't know how many of you got this in your mailbox? I didn't. I live a few doors down from one of the accesses. I didn't receive this. I had no, until my husband saw it in the newspaper, we didn't know this was happening. And we live 2 doors down. Something's wrong there. And I grew up with this saying, it was measure twice, cut once. And when I hear someone say, there's not a long-term plan for parking, it concerns me. I think we're going about this, we're trying to play catch up. We're going about this backwards. There wasn't enough community involvement. And so many good points have been brought up tonight. But there's some really obvious ones that I wasn't going to come up, but I haven't heard anyone mention the fact that 25 to 30% of our ash trees are dying. And what's happening with the overabundance of deer, 125 per square acre, or was it mile?
Mile.
Mile. Acre sounded awfully, didn't sound right. Per mile. They prefer the native. So you have these ash trees that are dying, natives that are struggling to get a foothold in, and they're being demolished by too many deer. And the deer avoid the invasives. So that's a problem. And getting back to public access, we already had public access. We had hunting, we had riding, we had hiking. But the key point was we had a limited amount of hiking. It was between 10 and 2. The hunters had more access to the land. I mean, how many hunters are here tonight? Are there any hunters? And is there a reason why they're not here? I mean, maybe they're afraid to make a fuss. Maybe they don't want to lose because they were kicked off for 2 years. Maybe they don't want to lose the privilege of hunting again after being allowed, severely limited, but allowed back on the land after being kicked off for 2 years. We had public access, and where does public access say parking is required? Can you point that out to me? I don't see that in the. My husband spent hours reading this proposal, hours. I really feel for the people on North Hill. I mean, what a nightmare. But first of all, how did it come up with the name Rainbow Hill? I mean, how did you? It's a pretty name. Is that how you picked it, Rainbow Hill? It just sounds good.
There's a geographic feature. There's a hill next to Rainbow Hill Road that's called Rainbow Hill that we named it after.
So I don't see any. I don't see any speed signs or any counting on Rainbow. I don't see any any trackers of how much Rainbow Hill has been impacted and the speed. I haven't seen any of that, but that's going to be an issue. So the ash trees are dying. The deer eat the natives. And birds and others, we have beaver, bobcats, native birds. They rely on the natives. They can't live on the invasives. And with the deer devouring the natives, and there's no plan, we're going to lose. This is a very fragile, special ecological area. And to have, and three parking. I was shocked when I drove down North Hill. I actually felt bad driving down North Hill just to add to the traffic. Because I've been through parks in East Amwell and the Sourland Mountains and off of Rileyville, and at the most, there might be 5 parking spots, or maybe 3. But when I saw the size of this parking lot, I was really shocked. And then to think that they're putting more in across Wurtsville. I mean, how many hordes of people are we anticipating that we're, even thinking of a 3rd parking lot? I'm concerned about the trampling. People aren't going to stay on the trails. You might have limited it. I mean, you're saying you've limited it to 10 miles, but people aren't going to stay on those trails. And we have hikers now year-round, and not just between 10 and 2. And that's going to be impacting the fragile ecosystem, the birds, the animals that are there. In fact, I was walking on on Wurtsville a few years ago when the bridge was out, and I saw someone leaving the air park, the drive, and it was getting to be dusk, and I felt okay walking on Wurtsville because there were no cars on Wurtsville with the road out or the bridge out. And I said, I think it's I think you're not supposed to be here past 2, and they pointed to a sign and said, no, you can be here until dusk. And then they were so excited. They were bragging about what they had found there. They had their metal detectors, and they were pulling stuff out. This just isn't. They're not respecting. We had, if you were in the AVTA, you had your badge. You wanted to respect the park, or not the park. You wanted to respect the land. I don't see. If you're coming, they weren't even. Not only were they not East Amwell, they weren't even in Hunterdon County. They were from up north. I don't see people respecting something that's special and fragile and that has been taken care of for years. So, I mean, those are the highlights. I understand that the country club might be turned into a park. That to me looks like a perfect spot for parking. And if you want to park there, it's a beautiful place. This one, I mean, it's just a beautiful, the scenery up there, the views are beautiful. It's already been mowed down. I mean, it's not natural, native land. It's already been pretty much, it's not native. It's nice to see some of the native grasses come back, but it's not the same as the air park. So I think that really covers the highlights. I think the lack of forthrightness to the immediate neighbors on North Hill, Rainbow Hill, it's a concern. So I'm glad you're here, but I'm wondering if it's not a case of, measuring after you've cut. That's my thought.
Okay, any other comments? Yes?
Hi, Jessica Wysocki, East Amwell resident. I just wanted to thank New Jersey Conservation Foundation first for allowing volunteers to have an input. When I learned that they were starting to work on trails, I joined as many work days as I could and gave input where I felt I could, and they were very willing to listen. And not only do I feel like I had input into the trails and be able to work on them, but I met some really great people and feel like I have a network of friends through this that I didn't have prior, and we're all looking for the best way to preserve what we all love about that area. And we can't control the people that come and visit, unfortunately, and I completely understand why everybody's upset about the people that come and speed on the road, don't pull over, leave trash, all of that. There's not much that human nature can do about that, and certainly nothing that the foundation can do, other than post signs and things like that. A couple of people have mentioned, do you think the trails are too wide? That was actually a request from AVTA to have the trails wide so that the tractor can come through and mow. So that has nothing to do with the foundation. So I would suggest that, getting involved and coming to, any meeting where the foundation is, they really do want to listen and want to work with us. Some of them are actually our neighbors. Most of them are our neighbors. So they understand and they want to work with us. So we can all continue to love the property that we do, for all of the various reasons. And some other inaccuracies. The 10 to 2 visiting time has been in place for years, but it's been only during hunting season. So it's, it's still 10 and 2 during hunting season. It hasn't been, I guess it's requested between 10 and 2 during hunting season, even now as it is a preserve. So, I think that as a community, we should probably try to band together and come up with, solutions that work for everybody instead of passing around inaccuracies and having everybody be upset and calling it a park when it is actually a preserve. And, I can tell you that the number of people that came to the preserve right after it was opened was something that nobody expected. And I helped monitor the parking lot after it was apparent that there was way too many people. And it's more than any of us anticipated. And I think that a lot of it was people who lived in the area as kids and used to go up there and party and do whatever. And they wanted to go back and see because now it's open, so we can go back and see. I mean, I took pictures of people at the lake because they wanted to see what, have, their memories of things. So I think a lot of it's going to die down after everybody, goes once or twice, and it's going to go back to being more of the passive recreation that we had all become accustomed to. And, the one thing that I would like to see, because I am a horse rider, and I've, mentioned it to the Conservation Foundation, is eventually being able to maybe have a horse parking area, trailer parking area, especially because we have lost trails. I can no longer ride there from where I live because I can't cross the Thompson land. So, there's a lot of things that are still in the process, and it would be great someday to have a parking area for East Amwell residents to be able to ride there, since a lot of us can't get there. Some people are still lucky and can still get there. So I think that overall it's a great way for everybody in East Amwell to come together as a community and still be able to use the property as it's been intended for years. And I'm very glad that it's been preserved. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, last call. Yes.
Hi, my name's Judith Glassgold. I live on Wartsville Road, but in Hillsborough. I moved to the Sourlands in 1989 and first lived in East Amwell on Rileyville Road, and I've hiked every trail in the Sourlands now. I love this preserve, and I once went there 20 years ago with some friends before it was preserved, and it was a scary, sad place. And even when I started going there in May of 2020 to see if the pond was swimmable, it wasn't necessarily a place one would feel that safe because of the garbage, the cars, the tires. And I agree with Mr. Wolf that it's better for the stewardship of NJCF because it's been cleaned up. I've worked on the trails. I'm one of the trail volunteers, and we move trails away from wetlands and done all sorts of things. And I think having public access improves the stewardship. I mean, Sourland Conservancy has been able to get involved and plant trees to address the death of the ashes and the depletion of our forests. I'm a bird watcher, so having bird watchers, birders being able to access the area, because before there were lots of trails, but you get lost, they were not well maintained. We can now try to find the birds. And I've gone out, sadly, I hope the neighbors don't mind, we've gone out 7:30 in the morning. And and found the rare species or the endangered and the bobolinks and the owls and the tanagers. So I think having people being able responsively to access the site has improved it. And I think, like Jessica, I've found that because I started walking the trails early, I was able to give input and talk about to NJCF some of the issues in the lands and advise them things. And I feel positively about the preservation. Also, as a volunteer, I still am sort of a busybody, so when I see someone with a motorbike, I tell them to remove it and talk to them in a nice way, because I'm a older lady who's wandering the trails by herself. And I still try to maintain them and block things off and make sure they're that people can see where they're supposed to go. Because I've met some really nice people just hiking the trails. I go during the week when maybe it's less crowded, but everyone has been very friendly, and I think has been trying to be responsible in their use of the site, because they really appreciate it, because it's different than the other sites on the Sourlands. It has more variety of features, and I think it's more open in places, so I think it has some wonderful features. And actually, I prefer people to hike there where the ecology is in some ways so degraded that in other parts of the Sourlands, I worry that it's being overutilized further up the mountain and can do more ecological damage if people went there. But I think in general, the land is being restored with these activities. And like Jessica said, volunteers are coming in, cleanup crews. I think that energy is going to transform this property. And some of the young birders we go out with are teenagers. And if we're getting them involved and they love this property, at least 30 years from now, when all of us can't walk the trails, they'll be out there helping out. So I'm glad NGACF is there, but I think it's wonderful what you all are doing, hearing the residents' concerns, because North Hill is a beautiful road. I used to bike up it. And, it's important that everybody be engaged and committed to this process, which is often a bunch of trade-offs and complicated decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Any objection to closing to the public on this matter? Okay, without objection, we're closed. Let me say thank you very much to everyone from NJCF who came and presented and answered questions today. And thank you also to all the residents who came and shared your thoughts and ideas. I believe that this is a very constructive process that we're engaged in now. This is a wonderful resource. It's a great resource to our town, to the residents, and I'm confident that with this dialogue, we're moving to a place where everyone's concerns can be addressed in the best way possible. So we will have this on the agenda again whenever necessary. And thank you everyone for coming. Maybe we'll take a couple moments and just have a restroom break before we proceed with the rest of the agenda. All right, thanks everyone. Anyone can file out now if they need to. Appreciate you all coming.
Thank you for so much time.
I did.
So
Okay, reconvening the meeting. I see that our friends from the rescue squad are here, so I want to add that to the agenda. Anyone who wants to come forward, please.
Thank you for your time, and I promise we'll be a little bit quicker. I did hand out something to all of you tonight. I just wanted to cover, since we've gone to our suggested plan that we had discussed last meeting of covering 36 hours staffed, we've responded to a total of 19 calls during that window of time and during times when we have had a staffed crew. And in those periods of time, our response from dispatch to scene has been under 7 minutes. So I know there was discussion last meeting about response times between ourselves and other agencies, and having that extended time. Now that we are staffing the building, we are significantly cutting back the amount of time it's taking us to get to our residents and to our calls. Those 19 calls do also include times where we've gone into West Amwell Township, Lambertville, and Raritan Township. In the East Amwell residents, exclusively, we've responded to 11 calls during that window of time in less than 6.5 minutes on average. So I know there was, again, discussion about 10 minutes. That is greatly decreased. On top of that, the one other thing that I wanted to mention was we have been in discussions with the state police. I've talked to a few troopers over the past couple of months, and once we finish our renovations to our building, we plan on opening up our space to the state police as well and allowing them to use our facility for restrooms or heating up a meal, whatever they may need, hopefully to invite them to our township a little bit more than what they have now. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Also, I want to just let you guys know we do have a new president. Ethan Stanley is here with me tonight. So he'll be representing us as well at these meetings.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing the information. I appreciate it. So it looks like it's going okay?
I mean, I have yet to hear from the representatives from the other towns. I know you
I
have
reached out.
to
I've
them.
sent a general message, but not many people responded. So
Yeah.
I guess that means that's a good thing.
I mean, no news is good news, I would assume. I did also get in touch with Braden Fahey from the county.
Okay.
Regarding the issues with dispatching.
Right.
And he's been helping me correct the issues with roads that were being incorrectly dispatched to mutual aid.
Sounds like we're on schedule then. We're making progress. I appreciate that. Thanks, Paul.
Not a problem.
And thanks, Ethan, for your time too. Sorry that we kept you guys here a couple hours for that.
Quite all right.
But thank you.
Does anyone have any questions before we?
Yeah, no, but it sounds like good news, and I appreciate the efforts of both of you, and you keep us informed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night.
Good work.
All right, for all your stalwarts out there, we're up to item 11 on the agenda. Ordinance 2401, first reading and introduction.
An ordinance to approve the 2024 salary and wage schedule.
Okay, so this ordinance is an annual administrative ordinance. It's required by the state, and it provides for salary increases for employees in the township. Can I have a motion to introduce this ordinance with a public hearing date of February 8th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We don't need a roll call.
Don't need a roll call? Okay, good. So that's carried. Consent agenda. So on this, I'm just going to remove 2024-36, which is personnel finance assistant. We're not quite ready for that today, but likely to be on the agenda for next month.
Before you move to the consent agenda
Please.
too, for the resolution, the 2024-38, if Linda could just explain, that's a requirement by our insurance company, right, Linda?
Yeah, so we have a checklist that we need to follow for the adoption of the new policy manual. And one of the, requirements for that was to adopt the model civil rights policy. So that's what we're doing.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Ante.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna.
You also need to add that number 42, okay.
At 42, right?
Yep.
Yep. And so we're adding one resolution to the agenda, 2024-42. That's appointment of a groundwater hydrologist. It was raised to our attention from the Board of Health that they need someone immediately appointed to handle some work that they're currently doing. Any other items on those before we seek a motion? Okay, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 2024-35 through resolution 2024-42 as filed with the Office of the Township Clerk?
Taking away 36, right? 2024.
Yes, without
Yeah,
36,
sure.
exactly.
I'll move that.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Casper Bloom?
Yes.
Ms. Enton?
Yes.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mayor DePiero?
Yes. Okay. So we covered all those, Linda?
Yep.
Okay, new business had none. Approval of the bills. May I have a motion to approve the January 11, 2024 bills of the evening?
So moved.
I could second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Casper Bloom?
Yes.
Ms. Enton?
Yes.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mayor DePiero?
Yes. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the administrative reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, correspondence. Folks have correspondence to read. Any objection opening to the public? Without objection, we're open to the public. Anyone still have anything they'd like to raise at this point? Yes, please, sir. Come on up.
It's a minor thing. My name is Angelo Lavisa. I'm a resident. I submitted a blue light permit, and I was told it was supposed to be read tonight. I was just wanted to be available if there was any questions about it.
Thank you, Duke.
You know, it was
Sure.
already, the
It's all done?
resolution was already on.
Right.
I actually have it in the signature folder for you to sign.
Okay, that was from last
yes.
one, right?
Yeah, it was the last one. We had
Yes.
it on the resolution on last meeting. And
Right. I recall that. If
Came to
that's
the
the
wrong
one,
meeting.
we'll get a
No, it's
signature
okay.
for it
We'll just
after the
sign it
meeting.
and you can be on your way. It's right here.
Okay. That's all.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public? Okay, seeing none, any objection to closing to the public? Without objection, we're closed. Any further business? Hearing none, any motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Good
Thanks
job,
for
Mr. Mayor.
appreciating a long meeting.
Good job.
Well done.
You did a good job.
Al?